Hello and welcome back to the Mathematics of Vice, the show where I tell you all about the mathematics behind mankind's favorite guilty pleasures. In the last video, I talked a little bit about Blackjack, my favorite card game, and how you can maximize your chances at winning in one single hand using basic strategy. However, during that video, I did mention that the odds of winning in any hand of blackjack, even with perfect basic strategy, were only about 42%. As I said in the last video, the house always wins in the long run. You're never going to break the rules of probability, but you might just be able to bend them a little bit for a short-term advantage. But first, let's roll the logo. Now, in order to demonstrate my betting strategy, we're going to step away from blackjack for a moment and do something a little bit simpler. Imagine a game where you flip a coin. Heads, you double your bet. If you get tails, you lose your bet. Pretty simple, yeah? So let's say I bet $10 on this game. If I flip my coin, I now have a 50% chance of doubling my money and coming away $10 richer than when I started. Of course, I also have a 50% or 1/2 chance of throwing tails, which means I would be down to negative $10 total. So those are my two possibilities, right? Positive 10 or negative 10, both of which have a 50% chance of occurring. But we can tweak this just a little bit by taking into account more than one game at a time. Watch what happens when I play again, except I double my bet to $20. Well, okay, once again I have a 50% chance of winning, and if I do, that $20 doubles to $40, which means I am back right at $10, just as if I had won the first game. Let me take you through that really fast, okay? So I'm already at negative $10. I put another $20 on the table, which brings me down to negative 30 total. Then, when I win, by flipping heads, that doubles to 40. I get it back. 40 minus 30 is $10, and yes, it is just as though I won the very first round. So basically, in order to actually lose, I would have to lose twice in a row. So what are the odds of losing this game twice in a row? Well, we know that the odds of throwing a tails is 50% or 1/2. We know that the odds of throwing another tails is again 50% or 1/2. And with probability, the probability of two independent events happening one after another is the probability of each one simply multiplied together. So take that 1/2 times 1/2, and that gives you 1/4 or 25%. By doubling my bet and trying again, I have essentially given myself a 75% chance of winning $10, but that 25% loss now means that I am at negative $30, right? If I throw two tails in a row, I've now bet $30 that I am out. So how do I deal with that? Well, if I've got the money, I can double my bet again to $40, bringing me down to negative 70, at least during the game, and then throw one more time. And if I get that heads, guess what? That $40, it doubles to 80, and I am back to, you guessed it, $10. Of course, once again, if I lose a third time in a row, now I'm out $70. And this is the basics of how this betting strategy works. By doubling my bet over and over again, I am increasing the chances that I can get back to that initial win condition of $10. The big risk, of course, is the more times I double my money, the more I lose if I never actually get that win. So let's talk about blackjack and my strategy here. When I sit down to play blackjack, I try to find a table that has a minimum bet of $5. That way I know where I'm starting, and I know that my goal is to gain in increments of $5. I will sit down and bet the minimum. Anytime I win, I will go back to betting the minimum on the next one. So if I win my first one, I'll take my $5 chip, I will put it in my pocket, not on the table, I'll talk about that in a second later, and then I will just continue betting the minimum until I lose. And if I lose, I will double my bet and I will play again. And if I push, you know, where it's neither a win or a loss, I'll just leave whatever bet I had on there and bet the same again next time. A push doesn't really count one way or the other. So, one more time, if I win, I go back to betting the minimum, in this case $5, and if I lose, I double my bet and play again until either I win, at which point I will be at plus $5, or until I break the bank and run out of money. Now, as I said, this can get very expensive very quickly, so the way that I get around that is by limiting the amount of money that I have on hand. When I go to a casino, I give myself a strict amount of cash on hand, and I never use the ATM. Go back to my very first video if you want an explanation of that. So let's say I walk into a casino casino and I have in my pocket $155 worth of chips. Now, as you will see above, if I start with $5 and double every time I lose, I can lose only 5 times in a row before I go broke. So what are the odds of me actually losing all of my money? Well, to do that, I would have to lose 5 times in a row. The odds of losing in any given blackjack game, assuming that I make the correct decisions, are about 58% or 0.58. So all I have to do is multiply 0.58 times 0.58 5 times in order to find out what the odds are of me losing all 5 hands in a row, and that works out to about 6.6%. What I'm hoping for is that I can hit that 93.4% several times without hitting that one 6.6% bad luck streak. If I can win 10 cycles before going broke, that's $50 in my pocket. Of course, there's always the possibility that I'll sit down and in my first 5 hands, lose all 5 and have to go home immediately. Gambling is gambling, after all. If I wanted to swing the odds even further in my favor, I could, of course, bring more money. If I could bring $800 instead of $315, and remember friends, never gamble with more money than you can afford to lose, but if I brought $800 instead, I would have a 97.8% chance of winning in any given cycle. Or if you can find a place with a lower minimum bet, some video blackjack places I believe have a minimum bet of only $1, that means that you can double more times before you end up actually losing. Just keep in mind that if you do place a lower initial bet, that does mean the reward goes down as well to $1 instead of 5 or 10. And there is one last little psychological trick I play on myself. I put my chips on the table right at the beginning, but any winnings I make, those $5 or $10 increments that I make, I don't put those on the table with the rest of the chips. I put those in my pocket so that I'm only ever playing with the initial money that I brought in. That way, even if I do break the bank, at least I've got some chips in my pocket still to show for it. And of course, sometimes after I've doubled 2 or 3 times, I'll hit a blackjack and get that sweet 5-2 payout on a big bet, and it's not what I'm going for, it's not my intent, but it sure does feel good when it happens. I've said it before, and I'll say it again forever. The house always wins in the long run. Using this method, I'm usually able to make enough money to at least buy dinner for myself. And if I do go on that bad luck streak early and lose all my money, then I shrug my shoulders and remind myself that gambling is pay to play. But now you too can give yourself a short-term edge and maybe just impress your friends with your ability to make a little bit of side money on the blackjack table. This has been the Mathematics of Vice. I have been Professor Cunningham. Thank you so much for watching. Have fun and be safe out there.